You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another manga review. Today I'll be reviewing the manga series Shin Violence Jack. Shin Violence Jack is another manga series of Violence Jack, and is another alternate interpretation of the series. Now, in my previous video where I did my top 10 underrated Devilman characters, there were a couple of mistakes that I made when describing it, but I'll get to that in a minute, and it will make sense why I made those mistakes. Needless to say, this will be filled with spoilers, so you have been warned. So when I made that previous video, I was still in the process of reading all of Shin Violence Jack that I could, so because of that, my knowledge on the series was not yet complete. I'd still say it probably isn't, because there's probably a lot more to it, because it leaves off on a cliffhanger where I was reading. So I'm assuming there's much more to it. Plus, I only read a few chapters. I couldn't say exactly how much. I think possibly between 3 and 6. The source I was using had the numbers really weird, and it had a couple of duplicates that I had to skip, but I did read the chapters that I read in order, at least this time. So I read chapters 0, 1.1, 1.2, 2.1, and 2.2. There was also a 2 and a 3, but both of those were just duplicates of a couple of the others. Each of these were fairly long, with most of them averaging around 80 pages, and 0 itself being almost 300 pages, so I'm willing to bet they were multiple chapters combined, but regardless, I read up until the Skull King gets his face back, so if you've read the series, that gives you an idea of where I've read to. On the Devilman Wiki, I've read several contradictory things about Shin Violence Jack, which is very confusing, because unfortunately, a lot of Go Nagai's series have not been fully translated, even unofficially. You just kind of gotta read what you can find, and then maybe look at some scans of stuff in the original Japanese, and then fill in the gaps with stuff from the Devilman Wiki, which is what I do. So this can at times lead to me being incorrect, but if I catch myself in it, I will of course correct myself, which I will do in this review. Anyway, on to the review itself. Sorry about all that. So Shin Violence Jack starts out with a fairly similar premise to Violence Jack. Kanto gets destroyed in a giant earthquake. However, unlike in the original Violence Jack, in Shin Violence Jack, it gets flooded and becomes a series of islands. Jack, of course, shows up and fights a bunch of different thugs. However, this only lasts for a little bit. It takes a rather unexpected turn when the character of Sarah, one of the people he meets on the island, gets captured. When Sarah gets captured, Jack becomes what I presume to be Devilman and rescues her. Now, I say presume to be because I'll get into that in a minute. There is more to it. He rescues Sarah, and they're all plunged into hell. The thugs that they were fighting were led by a mysterious man known as Skull King, who has no face. Skull King's hair comes back, and his hair is blonde, and he keeps talking about how he had a friend when he was alive, and how his friend is also his mortal enemy. And it implies that that friend is Jack, and you can probably see where I'm going with this. So because of his blonde hair and some of the dialogue he says, he also refers to himself as the creator of hell and the king of the demons. So it's very heavily implied that he is Ryo-Asuka or Satan. And I do say very heavily implied because I will get to that in a second. It's not 100% true. So Jack, Sarah, and Ushio, a kid who he met on the island as well, get sucked into this hell-like area, and they storm Skull King's castle to rescue some prisoners that he'd taken in. When they go in there, though, some weird shit happens. Time gets fucked up. There's a kid version of Jack, which, like I said, is in the original Violence Jack as well. You see Miki's head on a dog, but then it later merges back to a real body. Now here's where things kind of fucked with me. So I had read contradictory things on the Devilman Wiki about Skull King. For instance, when I initially read about Skull King, it said that he was a reincarnation of Ryo-Asuka, and that Jack was Akira, just like how Jack is a reincarnation of Akira in the original Violence Jack. However, that's not true. Another thing I'd read is that Skull King himself was Akira, and that Jack was Ammon. This is actually probably more close to the truth in Shin Violence Jack, which I found very interesting because Jack was Akira in the original Violence Jack. So this is a different interpretation of the character, and therefore I can conclusively say it is not a sequel, but actually a retelling or reimagining of the franchise. Because in the final chapter that I read, when Skull King gets his face back, it's Akira's face, and that really freaked me out. Granted, I had read some people claim that on the Devilman Wiki, but I didn't believe it, because again, they very much hinted him being Ryo for the first little while that I read. The fact that his face was Akira's face when it came back, I was like, what the hell is going on? Especially since if Jack is Ammon, because he very clearly has to be in order to have those forms that look like Devilman, because Devilman is Ammon, if Jack is Ammon, would that make Jack the villain of this story? And if so, why is he helping the innocent? To be fair, I've never read Demon Knight, which is the prequel to Devilman, so I don't understand all the inner workings of Ammon's mind. I don't know if he has any good in him, because to be fair, in Devilman itself, they never really show you anything about Ammon himself other than in Ammon the Dark Side of Devilman, which is a spin-off manga which I have not read either. But yeah, Shin Violence Jack is a weird interpretation of the character and the series. It goes in a different direction than the original Violence Jack, which of course ends with Jack being the reincarnation of Akira, becoming Devilman and fighting Satan again. Whereas this involves Akira being the Skull King, Jack very possibly being Ammon. I don't know how much more of the manga there is out there, or if I've even read the whole thing. It may be very short. I honestly couldn't tell you because Shin Violence Jack does not have a lot of information about it posted online. And like I said, the source that I use isn't always reliable with Go Nagai series, unfortunately. I would love an English release of this officially, though. Get a nice big bound version of Violence Jack and Shin Violence Jack in the future, because they're both underrated series. But anyway, to my actual review, it's a very interesting read. It shows a lot of different cameos from other demons from Devilman. For instance, Jinmin is in it. Sarah becomes a Devilman with Siren. Xenon is in it. It's all over the place. It's nuts. It is way more Devilman than the original Violence Jack is initially. It just has different interpretations of the characters, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's definitely worth a read, and it's something else. Like I said, I did not see that twist coming with Skull King being Akira, even though I had read that on the Devilman wiki. But it's definitely something else, and you should check it out if you like Violence Jack. It's weird, though. It's definitely a bit weird, but it's good. It's very good. I'd say, overall, out of what I've read, I think I still prefer the original Violence Jack over it. This is a nice, good supplement to it. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red Eye, and you have a great day.